In the city of Lagos, there lived the most beautiful albino girl the world has ever seen, and she had just returned from the States with her mother as they walked into Murtala Aminu Airport. Her name was Crystal. Crystal was breathtaking. Her skin was pure glowing ivory, contrasting beautifully with her deep red lips. She was curvy, with long sculpted legs and a waist that gave her the perfect hourglass figure. But her hair was more beautiful, naturally platinum blonde, that made her utterly mesmerizing, turning heads effortlessly. But if Crystal was a stunner, her mother was a goddess, tall with the poise of a model in her 40s. You wouldn't even believe she was 40. She was the kind of woman who commanded attention effortlessly. Her sharp features, flawless caramel skin, and long graceful legs made her look like she just stepped off the runway. As they got into their black SUV, Crystal let out a dramatic sigh. Back to Nigeria, she murmured, looking out at the bustling street. Her mother chuckled as she fastened her seatbelt. Don't sound so heartbroken, darling. You act like I just sentenced you to life imprisonment. Crystal turned to her mother with playful frustration. Mom, I loved my school in the States, my friends, my life, everything. Now I have to start all over. What if I don't fit in? Her mother glanced at her knowingly. With a face like yours, sweetheart, fitting in has never been your problem. Crystal rolled her eyes, but couldn't hide the small smile tugging at her lips. You're just saying that 'cause you're my mom. Her mom scoffed, oh please. Even your teachers in the States called you a working masterpiece. You're not just pretty, Crystal. You're unforgettable. Crystal chuckled, leaning back into her seat as their driver navigated the lively streets of Lagos. By the way, she said, turning to her mother, did you find a school for me yet? Her mother's lips curved into a knowing smile. Of course, and not just any school. You trust me. The best school here is called Royal Diamonds Academy. Their facilities are top tier and the education is unmatched. I chose this school for you because of my love for luxury. Crystal exhaled, running a hand through her hair. I hope you're right, Mom. Her mother reached over and squeezed her hand. Trust me, sweetheart. Nigerian schools can be very, very interesting. Crystal wasn't entirely convinced, but as they pulled their car into their grand estate, she decided to give it a chance. If only she knew what was awaiting in this so-called luxurious school. The next morning, Royal Diamonds Academy gleamed under the Lagos sun. The school was magnificent, a true school for rich kids. They had a luxurious blend of modern architecture and classic elegance. They even had a fountain and outdoor sitting areas where students gathered in stylish uniforms. Crystal stepped out of the car, adjusting the navy blue blazer of her uniform. Over her crisp white blouse, her curves were undeniable. Almost she was really beautiful, toned legs as she walked, and her curls bounced with every step. Heads turned, conversations halted. A whisper rippled through the students like an unstoppable wave. Who is she? Oh my god, is she a model? Her hair, is that real? Crystal wasn't surprised. She was used to the attention. What she wasn't used to was the weight of the stares. In the US, she was admired, but here, she was treated like a rare artifact. Ignoring the murmurs, she made her way to the principal's office. But just as she reached the door, bam, she collided with someone hard. Her balance faltered, and she gasped, reaching out to steady herself. But before she could, a strong hand held her wrist, steadying her and preventing her from falling. She looked up and froze, and there he was, tall, broad-shouldered, effortlessly arrogant. His deep brown eyes, sharp jawline, and perfectly curled hair made him look like the type of guy people wrote romance novels about, the heir to a billionaire empire. Kenneth, the most desired boy in school. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Watch where you're going, snowflake." Crystal's brows furrowed. "Excuse me." Kenneth released her wrist, stepping back. I said, "Watch where you're going." Crystal looked at him, crossing her arms. "I heard you, but what I don't understand is why you're calling me snowflake." Kenneth smirked, tilting his head slightly. "Because you look like you just fell from the sky, like an out of place snowstorm." Crystal's lips parted in disbelief. "Are you always this rude? Or is today just special?" Kenneth looked at her as if he was bored. "I don't need your apology." Crystal laughed. "Apology? I bumped into you, sure, but I said sorry. You, on the other hand, are acting like you own the hallways." Kenneth's expression didn't change as he looked at her and said, "That's because I do." And with that, he turned and walked off, not sparing her another glance. Crystal stared at him, jaw clenched. Great, she said to herself. She had just been on this call for 5 minutes and had already met the rudest person alive. Shaking her head, she pushed open the principal's door. The principal, a well-dressed man in a tailored suit, greeted her warmly. "Crystal, welcome to Royal Diamonds Academy. You will find that we have the best facilities and the most talented students here. I have no doubt you would fit right in." Crystal smirked politely, though she wasn't so sure about that. Moments later, a teacher led her to the new classroom. The second she stepped in, every single student stared at her. The class was filled with Lagos rich kids, daughters of politicians, sons of business moguls, and future rulers of industries. But even amongst them, Crystal stood out like a goddess amongst mortals. And at the center of the room sat the queen bee of the class, Yhovine. She was undisputed royalty, the class queen, the girl with the most influence, and the one who controlled social status like it was her personal chessboard. She was stunning, dark skinned, and with a body sculpted to perfection, and she had long sleek black braids. Crystal's presence straightened everything. Yhovine smirked. Then she leaned back and said loud enough for the class to hear, "I didn't know they started admitting mannequins." The room erupted in laughter, not because the joke was funny, but because no one dared to defy Yhovine. Crystal remained graceful. She kept her face unreadable, her posture elegant. She scanned the room, refusing to look affected. But as her eyes swept across the students, they landed on a familiar face, Kenneth, her rude encounter earlier. Of course, she said to herself, this couldn't get any worse. Still, she refused to be bothered. They are just naive bullies looking for attention. That's what she said to herself. And so with a small knowing smile, she lifted her chin and took her seat. She was ready for whatever came next. And the students in this school, they didn't even know what was coming for them. The Royal Diamonds Academy cafeteria was a grand space. High ceilings, chandeliers, casting soft golden light, and polished marble floor that reflected the gleam of designer shoes. At the center of it all, seated at the most exclusive table, was Yhovine, the class queen bee. She sat gracefully, her long-toned legs crossed, and a perfectly manicured hand twirling a strand of her hair. But today, the cafeteria was buzzing about someone else and not Yhovine. Yhovine's perfectly glossed lips curled in annoyance as she overheard some of the conversation. "Have you seen the new girl? Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. I've never seen an albino that looks like that. She's like a literal angel. She looks like a model." Yhovine got angry. She slammed her fork onto her plate, drawing the attention of her three loyal friends, Sasha, Amanda, and Toke, who immediately stopped eating. Yhovine exhaled sharply, looking around before speaking, making sure her voice carried just enough to be overheard. "Who is that pale human anyway?" she sneered, rolling her eyes. "Sasha, the ever sidekick," smirked. Right. And why is everyone acting like she's the first light skinned person they have ever seen? It's getting annoying. Amanda chewing gum obnoxiously scoffed. I don't see what's so special. Sure, she's kinda pretty. Kinda. Toke interrupted. Amanda, don't lie. That girl is stunning. Yhovine's sharp gaze caught to Toke and immediately the girl shut up. Yhovine's voice was low but deadly. It doesn't matter how stunning she is. I am the queen here, and I will do what a queen does, put people in their place before they start growing wings. Sasha laughed. Oh, babe, that sounds like a plan. And as if the universe had heard their conversation, at that moment, Crystal walked into the cafeteria. The moment Crystal entered, all eyes turned to her. She walked with elegance, her head held high, and her navy blue blazer fitted to her curves. Even those who had seen her earlier in the class still couldn't stop staring. Whispers filled the room. She looks like a painting. I swear, she's prettier than most of the actresses I follow on Instagram. Her hair is actually natural. Kenneth seated at a table near the back lifted his gaze, just slightly, eyes dark and unreadable as he watched her pass. Crystal, used to the attention, ignored the whispers and made her way to the food counter. That was when Yhovine and her three shadows stood up, their trays in hands, and casually walked in her direction. Just as Crystal turned, bam, a sudden deadly collision. Ah, Crystal gasped as hot food splattered across her pristine uniform. Gasps echoed through the cafeteria. Crystal stood frozen, feeling the burn of the steaming rice, and sauce seep through her shirt and stinging her skin. Oh no! Yovin's voice said, mockingly sweet. She placed a hand on her chest in fake humor. I'm so sorry, but look on the bright side, dear. I guess I just added a little color to your pale skin. You should be grateful. Laughter erupted from her three friends. Some students snickered, too afraid to do otherwise. Crystal stood there, her fist clenching at her side. She could feel tears pricking her eyes, not from humiliation, but from the burning pain of the food on her skin. She swallowed hard, refusing to let them see her break. With silent dignity, she turned on her heel and walked away. And as she exited the cafeteria, Yovin's final taunt rang in the air. Oh yes, run home crying. Tata. More laughter followed, but amidst the noise, one person sat completely still. Kenneth. His jaw was tight. His grip on his fork was so hard, his knuckles turned white, but he said nothing. Not yet. That evening, Crystal lay on the plush white couch in their spacious living room, dressed in comfortable silk pajamas. The burning sensation on her skin had faded, but the words still stung. Her mother walked in, elegant as ever, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She settled gracefully beside Crystal, handing her a cup of warm hibiscus tea. I heard you had to leave school early, she said, her voice soft yet firm. Your uniform got ruined. Are you okay, dear? Should we see a doctor? Crystal smiled slightly, taking a sip of her tea. Mom, I'm fine. Plus, I've gotten enough rest. Her mother studied her carefully. Are you sure? Because I know you, Crystal, and I know when something is on your mind. Crystal hesitated for a moment, then set down her cup. She turned to her mother with serious expression. Mom, what do you do when someone constantly tries to ridicule and attack you? Do you respond or do you do nothing and walk away gracefully? Her mother leaned forward, gently tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. Doing nothing seems noble, but it doesn't help. An attacker won't stop until you set boundaries. Never accept to be preyed upon. Crystal told her, and in this moment, something inside her shifted. Grace is knowing when to walk away. Strength is knowing where to stand your ground. That's what her mother said. Yovin had made one mistake. She had underestimated Crystal. Crystal would not be preyed upon. Not anymore. Crystal entered Royal Diamonds Academy with a different energy the next day. She wasn't here to hide or to be afraid. She was here to live her life, and no insecure, power hungry girl was going to detect otherwise. As she stepped into the classroom, all eyes turned to her. The whisper started immediately. She's back. She really returned after what happened. Maybe she has learned her lesson. Crystal ignored them, but Yovin didn't. The self proclaimed queen of the school leaned back into her seat, a smile covering her perfectly lined lips. Her clique sat around waiting for their leader to strike. Oh wow, look who decided to show up, Yovin said loudly. And here I thought you were going to run back to America crying to your little friends. Laughter rippled through the classroom. Crystal didn't flinch. Instead, she walked gracefully to her seat, placed her bag down and turned to face Yovin. Is that all you've got? She asked, her voice smooth but sharp. Because I expected more. The laughter died down instantly. Yovin smirked, felted. Kristen tilted her head. I mean, if you need to put other people down to feel important, that's honestly pathetic. Gaps echoed in the classroom. Yovin's eyes darkened with rage. What did you just say? She hissed, rising from her seat. Crystal crossed her arms. You heard me. The tension in the room thickened. And then it happened. Yovin grabbed a textbook from her desk and threw it right at Crystal. Gaps filled the air. But before the book could hit her, a strong hand shot out and caught it mid-air. The class froze. Standing there holding the book effortlessly in one hand was Kenneth. His dark eyes burned with fury as he turned to Yovin. Enough! His voice was low, sharp, dangerous. What is your problem? Yovin looked shocked, and she tried to explain. Shut up, Yovin. The classroom fell into deep silence. No one had ever spoken to Yovin like that, except Kenneth. Crystal turned to Kenneth, her voice calm but firm. I don't need you to fight for me. Kenneth glanced at her surprised. She stepped forward, her golden eyes locked onto Yovin. If you need to bully to feel better about yourself, then you are sick and you need to grow up. The entire class was silent. Yovin stood frozen. For the first time in forever, she had nothing to say. Kenneth looked at Crystal with something unreadable in his eyes. Then, without warning, he walked over to her, took her hand, and pulled her out of the classroom. Kenneth led Crystal to an empty hallway near the rooftop case. Crystal jerked her hand away, irritated. What was that? Kenneth leaned against the railing, his expression unreadable. Relax. Crystal folded her arms. I told you I don't need saving. Kenneth said, I know. Then why did you do that? Because I'm a fan of you, Crystal. But Kenneth chuckled lightly. I've never seen anyone stand up to Yovin like that. These girls, they are all afraid of her. She rolled her eyes as she turned to look at him. Is that why you pulled me out of class? Kenneth shook his head. No, I pulled you out because I want to be your friend. Crystal laughed. Really? No, thank you. Kenneth raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because you're rude. Okay, fair. I was rude when we first met. I'm sorry, Kenneth said. Then she smirked. Apology accepted. So are we friends now? Crystal's smile widened. Still no. Kenneth found himself smiling too, but Crystal had walked away. The black SUV pulled into the driveway of a magnificent white mansion, one of the most expensive homes in the city. Yovin stepped out in the fit of rage, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor as she stormed inside. Her school bag slid off her shoulders and landed with a loud thud on the floor. A middle-aged maid, Madame Agnes, ran forward immediately. bending down to pick it up. Young man, let me. Yovin's eyes flashed with fury. How dare you touch my back with your filthy hands? I told you these are designers. Do you know how much this bag costs? They can literally feed you and your entire family. Mama Agnes froze, her hands trembling as she pulled away quickly. But Yoma, I just wanted to pick it up from the floor. Yovin crossed her arms. If you as much breathe near my things, you better go and sanitize your hands first. You filthy rag. Get out of my sight. Mama Agnes lowered her gaze and scurried away without another word. Yovin exhaled sharply and turned upwards, her long sleek hair bouncing flowing behind her as she stepped forward. Inside her room, a massive luxurious suite with gold accented furniture and floors to ceiling windows. Yovin threw her blazer across the room, nearly knocking down an expensive glass perfume bottle. She began pacing, her fists clenched, her thoughts raced like a storm. That pale rat, she hissed under her breath. She turned to her full length mirror, staring at her own reflection. Her dark skin glowed, her sharp features were flawless, her curves perfect. She had always been the most beautiful girl at Royal Diamonds Academy, the queen. But now everyone was looking at her. That girl, that albino, Crystal. Her golden curls, flawless skin captivated the entire school. And then Kenneth, the only boy she wanted, the one boy no girl ever caught his attention, now suddenly pulling her out of the classroom, defending her. Really? Jovin's nails dug into her palm. She thinks she can walk in here and take over my school. I don't care if she came from America. I would show her her place. She thinks she can take Kenneth away from me. Her breath quickened, her chest heavy with anger. No, I won't let her. Her dark eyes gleamed with malice. I would teach that girl a lesson. She grabbed her phone, her fingers shaking as she texted her friends. Tomorrow, Crystal would regret ever stepping foot into Royal Diamonds Academy. The night sky over Victoria Island was painted in a deep shade of indigo, with the glow of the city reflecting off the ocean in the distance. Inside Yovin's extravagant mansion, the atmosphere was anything but peaceful. The queen bee of the Royal Diamonds Academy had summoned her three loyal friends to her mansion for an emergency meeting. They sat in Yovin's massive bedroom, surrounded by plush furniture, a giant gold-trimmed mirror, and a walk-in closet filled with luxury brands that made any fashion lover weep. Hmm. Yhovine stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed, eyes blazing. We need to take that girl out completely. Her voice was sharp, dripping with venom. Her friends exchanged glances. Take her out, how? Adese asked, trailing a strand of her weave inside her fingers. Just as she looked around. Just get her expelled, Toke suggested. You know, plan something on her. A stolen exam script, drugs, whatever. Once she's caught, she's out. Yovin said, expulsion. That's weak. That's too easy. I want something that would destroy her. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against the glass table beside her. There was silence. Then, what if we find some dirt on her? Toke suggested. Something humiliating, something no one can ignore. If we expose her, she won't just be expelled. She would be ashamed to ever show her face in the school again. The students will mock her. Even Kenneth will stay away from her. You know how Kenneth doesn't like scandals? For the first time in the evening, Yovin smiled. That's perfect. Amanda looked skeptical. But how do we find dirt on her? She just got here. Yovin slowly turned her head, staring at Amaka as though she was the dumbest person on earth. Are you dumb? Yovin said. How do you find dirt on people? We are going to hire a goddamn private investigator, you fool. Her friends gasped. A whole private investigator? Of course, Yhovine said. If there's something to find, I'll find it. And when I do, she trailed up a wicked glint in her eye. Hmm. Crystal's perfect untouchable image would come coming down in front of everyone. Kenneth disgusted by her, the entire school laughing at her, Crystal leaving Royal Academy in shame. Yovin picked up her golden iPhone, dialing a number that she had never thought she would have to use. Her friends watched in stunned silence as she spoke. I need someone followed. I want every detail about her life, no matter how small. Money is not the problem. Get to work. She hung up, exhaling with satisfaction. Now, she said, looking at her friends, let's see how the perfect little Crystal is going to survive this. The girls erupted into laughter. The sound cold and merciless. Hmm. This is the end of part one. For the beauties of Royal Diamonds Academy, what do you think that Yovin is going to do? Do you think the private investigator is really going to find something on Crystal? It's crazy how people would go through such lengths just to find death to bring another person down. Hello, guys. Please stay tuned for part two. You know, I love telling interesting stories. Bye.